And this is what's happening now. We've got this whole flow of I train one person, train somebody else. So now my interns are training new interns. So I don't have to train the interns anymore.
Right. Okay. It's very interesting that you're actually mentioning this, because initially, the first time I saw the role of a community manager, the job scope was actually very fixed. It's something of, oh, you manage the list of registrants or the list of community members. You continue to engage them based on the kind of articles that you need to, blah, blah, blah. So it's a very top-down approach. But what you're actually saying is that you have your fingers on the pulse all the time. And I love the fact that you're now getting the experience back from what you did as the managing editor at the time, keeping your finger on the pulse, making sure that you know what's going on from the ground, and getting your trusted contributors to be able to give you that feedback, in these areas. And that in itself becomes part of the community manager role. So moving forward, I really do think that as we go on, especially in these days and this day and age, digital is one big thing that we have to learn. As a community manager, I think it's no longer just about knowing how to send emails, understanding the cloud, understanding how to use even things like MailChimp. It's not just that, but you got to learn how to write, you got to learn how to connect, you have to learn how to event organize, you have to learn how to be with people.
Yeah.
Have you ever come across a community manager that is so proficient with all the technical skills but couldn't network to save his or her life?
You know what? It's such a new kind of phrase. I don't believe that I can, off the top of my head, say that I've met anyone that has both the hard and soft skills. It's sort of like where I'm at. I'd probably make a really good community manager, which I am, I do. I'm the community manager for Expat Choice Singapore. But I will need to take a step back from that in the very near future because of the development of the digital app product that we're bringing to the market, and that's that's a huge project, and it's not even called Expat Choice. It's something that's very engaging and it moves on. But I'll need to concentrate on that project.
Right.
But what does come to mind are the huge amount of marketing people I've met in different companies, in insurance, in property, in banking. Like, people who are in marketing are extraordinary because they're pulled from pillar to post. 1 minute they're writing press release, then they're cropping images, then they're attending an event and they're spruiking a new book for their CEO, whatever it might be. Marketing professionals would make prime candidates to become community managers. But I do believe that the equal balance of soft and hard skills in the community manager role needs to be addressed, because a lot of marketers are not necessarily proficient technically. And I think there needs to be, and there might even be some subsidies in the Singapore system of training where marketers can upskill their digital skills. Like, how do you manage a website? How do you make GIF files? How do you use Magisto to do video? How do you do voiceovers? So, there's a lot of sort of hard skills that are relying on your soft skills as well. I think it's important that people learn how to do voiceovers and not necessarily have to be a voiceover artist. Okay?
Yeah.
So we're moving towards 100% video engagement. And if you've just got an image in front of you, as a community manager, you need to take a little bit more time to learn how to use possibly some video, stock video image. Say you're doing an article about wakeboarding, get some really nice wakeboarding images, and you've got some information about 5 top places to wakeboard in Singapore. Just get on a voiceover and go, wakeboarding in Singapore, these are our top 5 locations, boom, 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 boom. And it could be a 2-minute video. And then you put that into a captions editor, and the captions editor does the automatic captions, and you get all that done in 10 minutes.
Yep.
And then you upload it into your Vimeo or into your YouTube, and then you share the link on wherever. And
QR codes, what we love so much.
Whatever. But these sort of skills, and people are, and rightly so, frightened, frightened by the thought of having to do anything like this. But honestly, if we all gave each other the benefit of the doubt, it's actually not a difficult skill to acquire once you sort of open up to acquiring the skill. Like, it's very important to educate ourselves at every turn. And I'm finding that because I've done all these video files and GIF files and whatever, that I can teach it in a really engaging way. I think that's the other thing too. Like, if we're going to be teaching people to be community managers, we need to then have leaders who can teach with an engagement to make them want to be good at both the soft and the hard skill.
Agreed. You definitely want to inspire that kind of energy. But that's one of the things about community manager role. Something that they don't write in the job description is that you really have to love this community. Some may come across, right, just clicking on that, send my resume in, I want to apply for this job or this role, purely because of the paycheck and the exposure, but not because they necessarily love the community. I really do think that makes the difference between a good community manager and a great one, because a great one is truly invested in that, and that person wants to be part of this community, or already sees him or herself as part of this community. And that's super important, because if we don't do that, the biggest issue I really think is that you'll be doing things for the sake of doing. You'll be sending things based on a KPI. And my biggest gripe about many pieces of many articles that actually come my way is that when I see it, I know that this was written either based on a sponsored article, or it's because this person is only saying it for the sake of saying it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they care about what I would go through. Am I more budget conscious? Am I more conscious about the facade of the place? Or is it really about the experience that I'm looking for? Or is it really because I like the food? The biggest challenge here is really getting into that, to communicate that and to tell you that, hey, these are the things I'm looking out for. So I love the angle that your writers come through, and the ability to be able to put that there as the experience, So that being said, the evolution of the community manager now no longer needs to write, but the soft side of things, right? Being able to connect with the person, to be able to write something that appeals to the ever-changing crowd. That appeals to that particular generation. I feel that the it's really challenging, because how do you write something that's appealing intergenerationally?
Okay, there is a key. I believe there is a key. What it is, it's about taking ownership. Like, if you take ownership of something, nobody else is responsible for you or for what you're producing. Whether you're a community manager, whether you're a doctor, a dentist, a psychologist, you've got to take ownership. This is why professionals are professionals, because they take ownership. They take those 10,000 hours to learn, and then they put it into action. They take ownership. So therefore, when you're working in media, and when you're either a writer, an editor, an intern, how do I empower my interns? I train my interns to take ownership. And what that means is every address, every email, every phone number, every website, every Facebook, every social media link has to be correct. So say the intern is working on editorial, then say they're given a press release. I don't want a whole press release copied and pasted from the source into Expat Choice. I want the person to take ownership. Maybe it's the first, the third, the fifth, the seventh, and the ninth sentence as a starting point. Take ownership of the flow, and then add the contact details. Keep it simple. Let's learn it by rote. How do we take ownership of a media release? Because the media release is 100% perfect. But in our house style, it's not appropriate. So we need to put it into our house style.
Extract the good stuff and be able to apply it to your style. What works for your community?
what works for our community and also what is our voice. The voice of our community is talking to people who are living away from their home country or who have returned to Singapore as a global local. So you're my new audience. The global local is a huge community on Expat Choice because they want to be connected to the expats that are living locally because they've returned from Australia and they want to know where they hang out or where they're going or what do they like in Singapore because the Singaporean who's the global local has maybe returned after being away for 10 or 12 years and really doesn't know what's going on. But they do, of course they do. But in essence, the community of people that we build around Expat Choice are a like-minded community, and that's how we have to talk to them. So in the opening of most of the articles, it's like, having lived in Singapore for a number of years, or possibly you've just returned to Singapore, here are our top list of 19 places to go for dim sum on Sunday. And it puts it into perspective. So this type of taking ownership is very important from the intern to the editor to the digital editor, even to the writers. Like they've got to take ownership, and meaning that maybe someone's not going to read this internally before it's published, which shouldn't be the case. But sometimes things get a bit busy and things get published. And because they've already been written by one of my very good writers, and then it gets published, knowing that it's there's a sense of ownership about the article. Mind you, we do have a stream of command, but sometimes things just get through. We make mistakes. Sometimes we make mistakes.
Yeah,
and we're sorry for that.
Yeah. The great thing is that you are standing by your word, that you are giving them the ownership, you are empowering them. So if, let's say, for example, they make the mistake, honestly, as a business leader, right, I don't think you'll ever put yourself in a position whereby you say that, hey, look, why didn't you run it by me first? It's like, hey, boss, you gave me ownership. Like, how can you do this, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so you can't shoot yourself in the foot that way. So I completely respect that as one of the business leaders, and I really do appreciate that a lot. And for any of the marketers who are actually listening, hopefully, and your idea is that you're no longer going to just be a marketer, for example, or a digital marketer. You're eventually going to become a community manager or be very, very much affiliated to one, because your emails, your messages are going to have to be crafted with that kind of finesse and that kind of empathy to be able to keep connecting, be it whether it's a B2B or a B2C. Simple things like, say, for example, writing to a Muslim community, for example. The first thing you'd be saying is that, hey, we found this great halal certified this. That's the first thing you'd probably want to look into, right? Because why? That's one of the key things that you got to deal with, right? By and large, when some of the food articles come by or you read through, you're like, okay, they have this great steak place, they have this and this and this. There's no mention of pork, but they don't even mention whether it's halal certified or not. So that's another red flag.
It's common.
It happens.
It actually came up last week because we published, I can't remember the title, but something like 50 food and restaurant delivery services in Singapore, which is an extensive list, right? It's extensive. There's
huge.
A lot of research and hours went into that, and a couple of writers worked on it and a couple of editors putting it together. And I think it's a work in progress. I think there's 40 something in there now, and there'll still be a few more. But one of the readers contacted us on Facebook and said, hey, I just wanted to say there's not one that highlights, the halal. And it was like, within 5 minutes, it was in there, right? We are that flexible. It was like, right, get onto it straight away, editor, do some research, make sure it's all qualified. Bang, it was in there. And that's sort of that is what we are. But you're not going to see that happen at a lot of the other publications in Singapore. Like, they'll be very like, these are our 5. And if someone says, oh, we should add one, it's got to go through a whole command thing. Whereas with us, if you're registered and you're a community member, bang. And that actually came from a message from somebody on our Facebook group, where you need to join the group. It wasn't public. So anyway, so by the by,
the fact of the matter is that we learn from this. So it's a great, honestly speaking, it's I don't think you're the first or the last that will do that. But the great thing is, you all changed it within 10 minutes or 5 minutes, right? It's done already. Yep. So that's the great rectification. Like what you mentioned, bigger publishers that are or these traditional publishers, unfortunately, they can't take it back, right? It's not like they're gonna have another reprint in 2.5 weeks and say that, hey, I'm sorry, we made this mistake with this and that. It's too late. In the age of digital, this is a scary thing. As quickly as you need to, your output has to be as quick as your input, which is very, very strange though. How can you get quicker and quicker and quicker, right?